The bear, the big bad bear, Russia. Russia is often depicted as a bear in political cartoons. But anyways, here you can see a map of Russia as it existed about 500-600 years ago. And you'll observe over the course of this timeline, note two things. One, definitely that Russia is very aggressive in its territorial ambitions. And two, of particularly relevant note, how many times Russia has invaded Ukraine over the past 500 years. So here you can see the Russian upper echelons of society partnered with an explorer by the name of Yermak Timofeyevich to expand east into Siberia. There was a treaty signed between China and Russia to establish pretty much the same borders between China and Russia that exist to this day. That was the Treaty of Nirchinsk. The upper echelons of Russian society then partnered with a Danish explorer by the name of Vitus Bering that expanded the Russian borders into Alaska. That was then followed by a ruler by the name of Catherine the Great, who was very fond of Western culture. She Europeanized Russia as much as she possibly could. And you can see that was the first time that Russia has clearly invaded Ukraine over the past 500 years. Russia then expands into the Caucasus, right? This is countries like Georgia and Armenia, right? Couple decades of entrenchment, solidifying its borders. Then some particularly aggressive moves on Russia's part, invading the Stans, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, all of those countries, Uzbekistan, etc. Then Russia sold Alaska to the US. Here we have World War I. After World War I, Russia went into a particularly dark phase in its history. You can see that was when Russia invaded Ukraine for the second time, shortly after World War I, right? This is the Cold War. Russia expands even further into Europe after the Cold War. Russia loses Ukraine again. And 2022, I mean, not on this map, but Russia recently invaded Ukraine again. So 3 or 4 times in the past 500 years, Russia has invaded Ukraine. So it's interesting to note the history, part of a long-term strategy for Russia, definitely. Here is something that maybe you don't know about. It's a historical event called the Holodomor. I didn't know about it until I looked into it, but pretty much it was a organized or intentional starvation of the Ukrainian people on behalf of the Russian government that killed maybe 3 to 5 million people. So the Ukrainian people definitely hate Russia, which is evidenced in this war that is happening right now, right? So there's a long history between the Ukrainian people and Russian people, and definitely makes sense when you study this history.